Okay, picture this. Your 17-year-old daughter is going to buy beauty supplies for her senior pictures in a couple of days. She takes off in your car and she never, ever is seen again. Now, they do track down the man who took her and harmed her, and he does get arrested and he does get tried and he's convicted and he's in prison for the rest of his life. Yet, you still don't know where she's at. And every time you go to look online, you see a bunch of people saying that you think he's actually innocent and that someone else did it. So, let's talk about what really happened to Alexis Murphy. But before we get to that, I can't not talk about this. How are you guys? How are you doing? Are we all right? Are we handling being inside? I'm okay. This is what I do. I'm used to it, but I know a lot of people around me are starting to really lose their brain with trying to social distance, and I get it. We've had an interesting week so far. I'll, add a clip for you guys. I almost burnt down my house.
We're not going to survive the quarantine. Burning shit.
Janitor, because she already burnt pizza.
You're mean.
No more lunch waiting for you.
Fired. And now we're cleaning the oven. This is not going well.
So this didn't go well and ended up with...
I'm going to take a picture of the fire truck so I can say, oh, it's separate.
Bye, guys. I'm a mess some days, but my intentions were well. I was trying to use the self-clean option. I just forgot to take a pizza out of the oven before I hit the self-clean button. Yeah. And then also I want to show you guys. I'm so excited. Look what I made. Okay. It looks like bread. It's not edible. And today we're going to talk about Alexis Murphy disappeared out of Shipman, Virginia. Now, Shipman, Virginia is a very, very tiny town, very rural, only had about 500 people. And I believe it was the detective Billy Mays who described it as kind of like Mayberry, very small town. Now, Alexis was born June 25th of 1996 in Shipman, Virginia. Her mother was Laura Murphy and her father was Troy Brown. She did have an older brother by the name of Avery and a younger brother by the name of Cameron. At the time of her disappearance, she did not have a boyfriend. It is stated that she was about 5'7" and about 150 pounds. There are two other people that are always mentioned, and you'll see photos of them that were very close with Alexis, and that would be her aunt, Angela Taylor, and then her great aunt, which would be Trina Murphy. In fact, according to her great aunt, Trina, she was interviewed, and she described Alexis as being a rising senior at her high school. She was athletic, she was outgoing, she was popular, and she was a strikingly beautiful girl. And she felt that Alexis didn't even know how beautiful she was. That even though she was really into basketball and baseball and her volleyball team, she was actually the co-captain of the volleyball team, that she was still a girly girl. She was really into fashion, really into makeup, and had her own sense of style. Now, as we stated, Alexis was about to enter her senior year, and she would have been the class of 2014. And I want to just say this is beautiful, but her brother Avery, her older brother Avery, actually accepted her diploma for her in June of 2014 after her disappearance. Alexis was also working a job, and she was working in Charlottesville, which is close to Shipman, and she was working at the kid-to-kid consignment store. It was noted that she had even received a raise on the morning that she disappeared. August 3rd, 2014. It is about 6 o'clock in the evening. Alexis has already gone to work. She's came home and she tells her mother that she wants to go to Lynchburg so that she can buy some hair extensions. It was later proven, we will talk about this, but she did communicate with a gentleman who ended up being completely uninvolved in this case. So the actual plan is that she was going to drive to Lynchburg to pick up the items she needed, and then she was going to hang out with a gentleman. So she took her father's 2003 white Nissan Maxima and let her mom know where she was headed, and she headed out the door around 6:40, and she was headed to Lynchburg, which is about 30 to 40 miles away. In fact, she even sent out a tweet that said Burg bound, B-U-R-G, which is code for Lynchburg. So she takes off, and the next morning is when her family realizes something's not right. Now, Laura, the mother of Alexis, was actually working for the post office overnight, so it was the grandmother who first realized that Alexis didn't come home at her curfew. Completely abnormal for her. So the next morning, they're very concerned. She's told the mother, and they're thinking, what's going on? This isn't correct. Alexis wasn't one to be late. This is a very small town, 500 people. They know her friends. Going to be very easy to track her down. So she didn't break curfew. She was home. And if she was going to be late, she would have called. The family knew immediately, and her mother knew her friend, so she immediately reached out to them and knew instantly that something was wrong and reported her daughter missing. Now, her family jumped into immediate action. They've let the police know that she's missing, but at this point, they've got to figure out where is she. They don't know where she's at. They don't know where her car's at. They don't know where her cell phone's at. So the family does what most people would do. They start driving around. They start looking. They just try to look everywhere they can, driving to where she could have been. And they also try to use the Find My Phone app, okay? So you've got Find My Phone, Find My Friends. They called it iPhone Finder. I don't know. They've changed these names so many times. I'm not exactly sure which app they were using in 2013, but they're using the app that's tracking the phone. They use this and they end up tracking her phone's last location-ish. They later realized that it was actually 7 miles from her phone's last location, because it's not an exact dial in to where's the phone at. It's a general location of where the phone is at. So during this time, her family is out looking for her, trying to track her phone, trying to do everything they can, and they are not finding anything. They're not finding her, they're not finding her car, and they're not finding her phone. On August 6th, her car is found. Now, when Alexis had left her home, she told her mother that she was headed to Lynchburg. So Lynchburg is one direction, Shipman's in the middle, Charlottesville's in the other direction. Her car is found in Charlottesville in the other direction. It was found in Alberdale County, just north of Charlottesville, at the Carmike Movie Theater. This is actually about 40 miles north of Shipman off the US 29, and it's actually 1 mile from her work at the Kids to Kids connection. Now, police did ultimately release some surveillance footage of this car being dropped there, but it's absolutely, you can't tell nothing. All you can tell is that the car did pull up around 10 p.m. on the night of the 4th. It was parked there at around 10 p.m. and that is all you can tell. It is completely grainy. You cannot, it's just someone gets out of the car. The following day, on August 7th, the family did make an emotional plea to the community for any help or any tips in finding Alexis, or to even Alexis herself, if there was any chance that she had taken off.
If anybody know anything, please let us know, please.
The girl did not leave. She had such an active online social media presence. I know that like, yes, people can walk away from that, but somebody who builds up a social media following of 11,000 people has a desire to interact, okay? They want to be interacting with people. And someone who is this into making vines and making videos and taking selfies is not just gonna flat out drop off the planet. It just doesn't work that way. That would require a complete mental change in her entire personality 20 minutes after her last tweet. It makes no sense. To this day, it is still not 1,000% known what was or was not found in that vehicle, but it doesn't appear that there was any good, valuable information in that vehicle that pointed in any direction of who was responsible for what happened to Alexis. There did not seem to be a struggle in the vehicle. There didn't seem to be anything missing, and there was no other foreign DNA or fingerprints in the vehicle that we know of. August 8th. This is when they released CCTV of the last time that Alexis was seen, and we actually get insight into who our suspect is in this case. So they decide to try to look back at locations she might have stopped to look for surveillance footage, and that's exactly what they found. So if you were to head to Lynchburg, on your way out of town, there's a gas station called the Liberty Gas Station, and that's like a popular place that people would go, so it makes sense to check that location. And they did. They checked the surveillance and they see her. Alexis is seen. She comes up to the gas station and she gets out and she walks in. She's wearing a long sleeve pink, not red, we'll talk about that in a minute, pink shirt, floral pants. She has on brown boots and a gray purse. She walks into the gas station. Everything's fine. And then she's leaving and we see that a guy holds the door open for her and she leaves. Police did go back and talk to the attendants, and I actually saw some posts from the attendant on Reddit. I assume it's actually them because it matches up. And they said that when police talked to them, that they told them, yes, we saw her come in, everything was fine. And then we saw her go out and talk to a guy in the parking lot. But then she got back in her own car and left. So police start looking back and they are looking at the surveillance video to see who she's talking to. And what they noticed is that the guy who held open the door for her has a very distinct tattoo. A Daffy Duck tattoo. They talk to the attendant, and that's when they realize that they know who this guy is. And he's kind of, according to the attendant, kind of known for being a little bit of a skis, kind of a creep. And he was known for staring at girls, that he would park his truck in the parking lot and just stare. He would just sit there parked for a very long period of time. And he was known. He had a Daffy Duck tattoo on his neck, and he drove a camo Suburban. According in the area, the camo Suburbans, I know they were really popular because they were all over my town at this time, but apparently a bunch of people had them in 2013 in this city. Also at the same time, it was coming to light in the public that there was a search being done of a property off of at the Cannery Loop, and that's when people put it together. Randy Taylor. Randy Taylor drives a camo Suburban, has a Daffy Duck tattoo on his neck, was the man that held the door open for her, and was the man that the attendant saw her talking to in the parking lot. So when they actually went back and looked at the CCTV completely full, you can see that actually he pulls out of the parking lot and pulls onto US 29 headed towards Charlottesville, not Lynchburg, and Alexis is right there behind him, and she follows him down that road, seemingly to his trailer, which is on a private property next to the Cannery Loop. So that's where police were searching. They were actually searching his trailer. So who is Randy Taylor? So he was a 48-year-old man, described by the prosecuting attorney as a short, wiry man. Now, I didn't look up his actual record myself. I saw it in enough places, but he has a long history. The couple of podcasts said he did not have any violent, but if I saw and if it's correct, we're talking guns, stalking, assault, burglary, arson. It's a very lengthy and pretty violent criminal history that links back at least 20 years. Now, later on, we backtrack a little bit and we find out that Randy was actually interviewed already. So he was interviewed at first on the 5th, 2 days after she went missing, because he was in the surveillance video. And when police first talked to him, he flat out denied, I don't know the girl, never seen her, don't know anything, I don't know her. And he was more than willing to let police come into his trailer, look around, they collected some items, and he was totally fine. I don't know her, I know nothing. Police took those items. Now, the items that they found worried them immediately. They found what appeared to be a diamond stud, so maybe like the leftover of an earring or a nose piercing, it's like a tiny little stud. They found what appeared to be a ripped off fingernail or toenail, like a nail piece. And they also found a strand of long black hair on his pillow, which obviously did not belong to him. When they left that day, there was nothing more they could do other than collect the evidence and take it back to compare it for DNA. And then police did return to do a more thorough, full search. Police end up questioning Randy again, and he changes his story. And he actually ends up giving this to the news, everything. So according to Randy, this is this news story that he gives. He said that while he was at the gas station, that Alexis came up to him, totally possible, and mentioned to him something about smoking weed, according to him, when they were at the gas station. For some reason, Alexis came up to him to talk to him about weed because she had seen him smoking weed the prior week. But then she wanted to set him up with a connection for a guy that she knew. She said she knew a guy and that she could get them some. So according to him, they took off to his trailer, and a friend of hers met them at the trailer, who was her connection for weed, so that they could smoke and hang out. Now, this guy's name is Damian Bradley. I was not going to include him, but he's public interviews with his face, so he's okay with himself being out there. Damian Bradley is a friend of Alexis's. No clue in the world how Randy came up with the name of Damian, but he said that a friend of Alexis was a black man with cornrows, met them at the trailer, and his name was Damian Bradley, and that he was there to sell the drugs, and that they ended up smoking and drinking for about an hour. Alexis did not partake, and then they took off in their own separate cars and went their own separate way. He said that he did not tell police this originally because he didn't want to tell them that he had a little girl doing drugs and getting drunk down at his trailer. So yeah, according to Randy, he's at the gas station, and Alexis voluntarily wants to come to his trailer to have her friend bring marijuana so that they can smoke and hang out together. Okay, here's the deal. Would Alexis be interested in smoking marijuana? Yes. I went through her Twitter in very lengthy detail, looking at what kind of girl is she. Yeah, she smoked pot. She did. It's very evident by her Twitter. She had a very, very active Twitter, okay? Over 11,000 followers. She tweeted on a regular basis. She was constantly updating her Twitter. And her tweets are out there multiple times where she's talking about smoking. She has videos where she's blowing smoke. So, okay, she's a 17-year-old girl. She's smoking pot. So, yeah, in all honesty, unfortunately, she might have gone with Randy Taylor in order to get pot. And, of course, you're looking at it and like everyone else, and you're like, you mean to tell me that girl hung out with that guy even for pot? Possibly. She's kind of familiar with him. He has a son that was in her school, okay? And he's from the area. And he's at this gas station a lot. I would imagine that they're just familiar with each other. And when you have only 500 people in your town, you're less likely to be that picky about people that you're around. And I think that when you're buying marijuana in a small town, you do kind of get a little less choosy about who you're buying it from. I don't know, though. I really, honestly, to give you the truth, I think that she went in that direction for whatever reason. Maybe she was going to meet him down the block for some weed, but I do not think at all that she was choosing by choice to just go to this man's trailer to hang out with him at all whatsoever. I think he tricked her. I don't want to go on a tangent. We'll do my theories at the end. Police end up returning to Randy's trailer to do a complete thorough search. According to Randy, they had already done a search inside of his small trailer for over 3 hours, and that they returned to do another search. This time when they did the search, shoved underneath something, they actually found the t-shirt that Randy is wearing in the surveillance video. And on this t-shirt, there does appear to be blood. There appeared that there was extensions, like hair extensions, and fake eyelashes were inside of this t-shirt rolled up. Randy says that these items were planted by police. We've heard this before, right? And he says that the reason it was planted by police is that because he is a suspect in a prior murder of a girl by the name of Samantha Clark. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on Samantha Clark. She was a mother. She got a new group of friends. She's hanging out with these new people. Randy Taylor happens to be one of the guys. According to sources, he was kind of smitten about her, and she wasn't that really interested. And according to Randy, he had decided one night to call her phone over and over. I believe it was like 6 times in a row. And eventually, she left her house that night. He said he was just calling her to warn her that some girl and guy were going to beat her up because she had flirted with the guy. None of that was ever confirmed. She has still never been found. No one has ever been arrested. And Randy Taylor remains the prime suspect in her disappearance. And he says that police are mad at him. And he even mentions in his interview that he mocked the police and that he feels like they're setting him up for Alexis's death because they couldn't get him and Samantha's. This case was being handled very quickly. They were being very thorough. Laura, Alexis's mother, mentioned that when she went to file the missing persons report, that it actually took a very long time. And the reason being is that they had never completed a missing persons report. They had never had a missing person in their city. And so this was completely unusual to them. So they were working their butt off. So they found the CCTV to find her last sighting, which was at the Liberty gas station. They found that she was with Randy Taylor and that she left following his vehicle. They have gone to his trailer. They have located strands of her hair. They've located her eyelashes. They've located her nose ring, a nail. They've located all these items and a shirt which has blood on it, which they do prove to be her blood, okay? They find her items all over this trailer. According to the prosecutor, based on this forensic evidence, it literally was a horrible crime scene, that she died a violent death. The next thing of Alexis is to find was her cell phone. Where's her cell phone? Obviously, she's a young girl. She's on this phone all the time, so they're trying to locate it. They tried to do the Find My Friend. That didn't work. They end up finding her cell phone about 15 feet away from the trailer, and it's on the ground and it's completely smashed. Now, there was nothing they could do with this phone. The microchip had been damaged. The phone was broken. They weren't ever able to get anything from this phone. But it was found right there on Randy's property. Now, this property, so that I cover this, I found from another interview. The property is actually owned by Randy's son's grandma, so his ex-wife's mom. And apparently they had lived on this property, and then when Randy and his ex-wife divorced, he stayed in this trailer, and the grandma lived in the house. And then eventually the grandma moved a couple of years prior, and she said that Randy and his ex-wife shared custody of this son, the one that went to school with Alexis. And she said that the child was often there with his dad, but that the child was away on the weekend that Alexis went missing, and the grandma wasn't living there, so there was nobody else on this property. And apparently he lived in a trailer, and he was running electricity back to the house, but he lived in that trailer. Now, a lot of the information in regarding the dates of everything does get a little muddied, and that's because there was a gag order that was eventually placed on the case on December 11th. So Randy was actually arrested on charges of abduction by force, felony abduction by force, on August 11th at his home in the 1000 block of Nelson Highway. And that is just across from the Cannery Loop. When they did, they took his truck, they took it in to be searched, and he was held without bond. Now, the thing that they were trying to figure out is that her car, okay? So her car was found 40 miles in the other direction. So how did he get the car there and get back home? So they went in and they did some research. They were actually able to find a witness who worked at an Applebee's in Charlottesville, right next to where her car was found, in that parking lot. And according to that server, Randy Taylor came in the night that the car was dropped off around 10:30. So about 20 minutes after the car was dropped off, he comes into Applebee's. He was by himself, and he was served, he ate dinner, and then patrons in the restaurant said that they heard him asking for a taxi so that he could get back home. He did hail a taxi, and the taxi driver did testify that, yeah, he picked him up on that night that her car was dropped off there. He picked him up from the Applebee's and drove him back almost to his house. I heard that it was 3 miles from his house he was dropped off on the road. I also heard it, and I believe it was in the Investigation Discovery documentary, and I believe it was the detective Billy Mays, and he said that where Randy had the taxi drop him off was like the next driveway. So, like, instead of having them drive up to his house, he got dropped off like a house over, obviously to throw off the investigation. According to Randy, yeah, he did go, and he did go to Applebee's, but he said that he had a friend take him, and that the friend took him to Applebee's and they ate together, and then the friend left, so he took a taxi home. There's no friend. Nobody ever saw him with it. And so, like, okay, cool. Well, who's your friend? We'll call him. Well, he's a known drug dealer, and I don't want to give you his name. I've never given that information. So let's be clear. He drove Alexis's car to Charlottesville and parked it at the movie theater, and then went to Applebee's and then took a taxi home. But he's saying, no, he didn't drive Alexis's car, that his friend drove him, who he's not going to tell you who his friend is, and the car just mysteriously got there at the same time by coincidence. Now, that was on August 11th when he was arrested. On August 25th, he's actually indicted. And this is when we learned a lot of the stuff that I've already given you guys. So that's when we learned about the searches that took place. That's when we learned about Randy's statements. That's when we learned a lot because of the indictments being the arraignment that came forward. And then December 11th of 2013 was when the gag order was placed. And in January of 2014, so the next month, is when they actually upgraded the charges. What he ultimately pled not guilty to was first degree murder during abduction, and abduction with the intent to defile. These are the charges that he was ultimately found guilty of. The trial took place on May 1st of 2014, and he was found guilty on May 8th of 2014. He was found guilty and sentenced to 2 life sentences. During the sentencing, so the way that it works is the judge will obviously read, and then family will speak, and then they do the sentencing. The family spoke, so Laura got up there, Alexis' mother, and this man got up and left, bolted out of the courtroom and refused to come back. According to him, he felt so nauseous and sick from it that he just couldn't deal with it. It was absolutely a final disrespect to the family. You have to remember, at this point, this family has gone through a trial. Their daughter's never been found, and they're not going to find her. Like, they are accepting the fact that they're taking this man to trial without knowing where she is, and he's being found guilty, and he won't admit it, so he's not going to say where she is. On July 29th of 2014, the family did make a plea to Randy. Where's her body? Where is Alexis? Let us have her back. Randy offered to the family that, through way of his attorney, that there's a third person involved. I didn't do it, but I'll tell you where her body is at if you agree to let me only serve 20 years. And the family said no, absolutely not. They were not comfortable with letting a man who had already harmed their beautiful child out to go harm someone else. I mean, he already is a suspect in the disappearance of Samantha Clark. Now he's guilty in the disappearance and murder of Alexis Murphy. He does not need to be out, and the family decided that they would accept that they would not give in to him to find out where she is. Let's talk about the theories of who else this could have been. Originally, Randy said that him and Alexis went to the trailer and they met up with a friend of hers who was a black guy with cornrows. And they said that it was Damian Bradley. Now, they interviewed Damian Bradley. He's 100% cleared, okay? This was a friend of Alexis's, but he wasn't even in the state. He was gone. He was with his father. Literally nothing to do with this case. Don't even know how his name got thrown in, right? Okay, so they clear him out. Like, Damian Bradley is 100% nothing to do with this case. He wasn't even in the state. There's nothing involving with him, okay? So then they're like, okay, he said it was a black man with cornrows. So they're like, there is someone to look at. Jesse Matthews. Randy's attorney is a guy by the name of Michael Hallahan. So Michael Hallahan, there's a photo of him. I'm going to insert it because it's weird. With the attorney of a man by the name of Jesse Matthews. Jesse Matthews is in jail for 2 murders, okay? Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington. You've probably heard of these cases. These women went missing. Here's the thing. In Jesse's case, there was DNA on both, and both of those women have been found, and it's very clear cut. He did it. He's responsible. He's in jail. He's responsible for it. In the 2 women that Randy's accused of, neither body has been found. So, but there were people that were like, okay, so this is a serial killer, Jesse Matthews, in the area of Virginia, at the same time that Alexis went missing, and he's a black man with, okay, this is where it kind of gets, people got upset, and they're like, no, it's not even the same. Randy explained the man as having cornrows, but Jesse Matthews has dreadlocks, so even that wouldn't be the same. It got all weird because all the posts were on like, is that the guy with the dreadlocks? No, it's cornrows. No, it's dreadlocks. You guys are stupid if you don't know the difference. There's a lot of people who don't know the difference. So in all honesty, this didn't happen. First of all, this didn't happen. Like, there never was a man going to the trailer with Randy and Alexis. It was always Randy by himself with Alexis. So it like doesn't even matter whether or not it was cornrows or dreadlocks, because he said the man had cornrows. But if it was Jesse Matthews, he has dreadlocks, so it couldn't be the same. It doesn't matter. It wasn't him. They did DNA testing. There was a request made by Hallahan, Randy's attorney, trying to say that Jesse Matthews is a better suspect for the disappearance of Alexis. So the prosecutors agreed. They said, look, we don't want any, appeals to be coming, so we're going to cover our ass. And they did. They actually went back and checked everything, and they compared, because this was a violent struggle that happened between Alexis and Randy. So if Randy really didn't do it, and it really was this Jesse guy all over this trailer, then Jesse's DNA would have been in that trailer, and they checked. It was nowhere. Randy's DNA was on Alexis's belongings. So it was Randy. I'm going to add this in for you guys, too. I saw that Trina Murphy, Alexis's great aunt, and I believe her mother as well, is involved in an organization called Save the Next Girl. And this was actually in honor of Morgan Harrington, who was one of the victims of Jesse Matthews. And she had actually disappeared from a Metallica concert in the Virginia area. So they had this nonprofit called Save the Next Girl. And so her family, Alexis' family, is working with this nonprofit as well. I think it's a great one. So I'm going to throw a link for you guys at the top of my sources so you guys can see this site. I'm just going back through my notes to see anything I might have missed for you guys. On the night of August 3rd, when her car was seen, it was seen at the Livingston gas station at around 7:15. I have seen notices that people thought that if her car was there at 7:15, that it doesn't seem very likely that she was actually going to go to the beauty supply store in Lynchburg based on the time. But I'm not really sure. I don't know which store she was going to. So stores are open between 8 and 9. That seems totally fine that at 7:15 she could have been going to a beauty supply store, unless she knew for sure it closed her 7 or 8. But either way, she still got time if it closed the 8. The attendant made note that after she went outside, that Alexis goes over and talks to Randy as his truck. There isn't surveillance that we as the public have of that. I believe it is only her saying she went over to talk to him. The only surveillance that I have that I can show you is the surveillance video of her walking into the store. Now, in this picture, it's there's an orange or red at the bottom of this screen. And a lot of people wanted to know if that happened to be a car. Now, Jesse Matthews, the convicted serial killer, actually drove an orange car, and then the Damien guy drove a burgundy car. That's not a car. They've already went back. They have checked it, and that is actually the bottom of a sign. So if you thought that might have been something, that's what it is. It's the bottom of a sign. It's not a car. Also, at one point in time, there was a search done in a river, and they were very excited because they found a long sleeve red sweater. They thought that that could have actually belonged to Alexis, but that was not, it wasn't her sweater. And when she disappeared, she was wearing a fitted, tight, pink long sleeve shirt. Randy's trailer camper was off of the US 29 near Livingston, and it was about 1.5 miles from that Liberty liquor store. When the FBI did a search warrant, they did take canine out, so they did cover the whole area of that property because they found several cell phones. Randy, for some reason, would take batteries in and out of cell phones, switch them back. There was something going on with him. But they found a ton of cell phones, and he is insistent that that cell phone that they found wasn't Alexis's, but it was her white iPhone. Like, it was hers. They found her phone on your property, smashed. In an interview that Randy did, he said that, first of all, he thinks police set him up. He mentioned that they had already done a full search, and then they came back and they found the shirt. He says that they think they plotted that cell phone there, and he was asked, well, how would they have got their cell phone? I don't know. In regards to the shirt and it having blood on it, he basically says it was planted. Again, they're like, where would they have gotten her blood to do that? But he really is insistent. He says that he can't answer for these things now, but he will later because he intends to appeal this decision and he wants to testify. He did not testify prior. So if he ever gets an appeal, his intention is to testify. We don't need that. I do not even want to know what he would try to say. We don't need it. He's guilty. I hope he never gets a chance. This was the third only ever no body conviction in the state of Virginia. So this was a good win for them to be able to convict this case without being able to find her body. So that is the case on the disappearance of Alexis Murphy. 17 years old, literally had the world ahead of her. Everything she could have been, everything she could have accomplished. It just breaks my absolute heart for her family. So I send all of my love that I possibly can. I am praying for the day that she is recovered and found so she can be returned to her family and rest in peace. I don't believe there's any chance in the world that she just walked away from her family. Nobody thinks that. Nobody believes that. So I am praying that she is resting in peace wherever she is and she is returned to her family. And honestly, do better, people. Stop sharing stupid headlines that research. Do it better. Look a little. Like, have questions. Question things. Look into it. I hate seeing headlines shared about, oh, he's innocent or he's not involved. And so do better. Stop sharing things like that. Look into it. In all of these cases that we're dealing with. So I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart. I'm thinking of you guys. Stay safe. Stay well. Take care of yourself. I love you guys. Do me a favor. I say this at the end of every one of my videos, and it means so much right now. Hug your babies. Hug your loves. Life is literally precious. Enjoy every minute of every day, even if you're stuck inside. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.